All right. Thanks again for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections Track and Field podcast. Super excited. Just had an awesome weekend. When you're hearing this, we actually are recording right after that American Track League competition that just happened on ESPN. When you're listening to this, yesterday was another one, and just super excited. We had a lot of fun. Track is back. That is the best news we can have. There are meets going on around the country, and boy, there's nothing like track season. So super excited for that, and super excited for today's guest. Please help me welcome good friend, great coach, greater person, head coach of NC North Carolina A&T, Mr. Duane Ross. Duane, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good, Mike. Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh man, it is literally my pleasure, because not only, obviously as a coach, and you're doing some big things that people are excited about and you're excited about, but this one's special. We've become friends over the past few years now through business and things like that. And so, it's always fun to talk to a friend, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. It's good to see you.
Like think about this. We are getting paid right now. Like, this is part of our job. You're
That's
getting
right.
paid right now, and I'm getting paid right now to talk to each other, to talk to friends, man. Boy, all you suckers that are, went to accounting school and stuff like that, you guys missed out. Well, Duane, you're doing some really, really cool and special things at NCA&T, and we reached out to our Twitter network and asked them for questions. And there is a litany. You can't see it because of the nice green screen or whatever we're using here, but I've got I don't know, it might be 20 different questions here that people reached out to me to ask you, and so we'll intersperse them as we go along in today's conversation. Most of them are centered around NCA&T. People are really excited about what you're doing there. So before we get to where we are at today, let's learn a little bit about your journey and how you got to NCA&T. So let's hop in our Wayback Machine and let's go back to, when did you first start running track, and what did you run, and how'd that all come about?
Yeah. Funny story. So, and you and I have talked about this at the steakhouse.
That's right.
I'm from a small town, Dallas, North Carolina. Just the greatest people. Love it. Small town. Everyone around that town, Dallas, Gastonia, Stanley, everyone plays football. Right. So I played football from the time I could probably walk. So I started running track my junior year in high school.
Oh,
right? Yeah. So I mean, track and field was not. I mean, listen, the lanes around the track, I literally thought that was for homecoming, right? There was, when the cars drive around the track. I mean, there was no track and field.
Wow.
Right? There was no youth track and field. I mean, there was only football, right? Football, basketball, that was it. So I got into running because I played football. And I tried to play basketball, right? And that didn't work. I'll never forget Hal White, who was the basketball coach at North Gaston High School. I'll never forget, I went in, try out for the team, right? Had a little pickup game, and I was all over the place, just a strong guy, just country, and sprained my ankle, pretty bad. So obviously there was no basketball. That was my junior year. There was no basketball. So we had this plan. Hey, you know what? Let's go out here. Let's do track. Let's get back in shape for football.
Yeah, get in shape for football, right?
So, that was the plan. So we went out, and believe it or not, listen, I tell this story to my team all the time. They never believe this. My first event was the shot put. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I don't know if I told you that. Yeah, my first event was the shot put. And I was a school record holder in the shot put. I threw shot and discus. Yeah.
Wow. No sprinting at all at first?
No.
Now, was that because of the ankle or because of just country strong, as you mentioned it, or what?
I was just a strong kid, and I was football fast, but
right.
No one thought I could be track fast. We already had some decent sprinters on the team, and that were running. So I just fell into place and threw shot, and I thought that was going to be my thing until football season started.
Wow.
Until one competition I'll never forget this. We're at a competition, and I've thrown the shot, and I'm sitting up in the bleachers, and with our teammates, and I had a cousin who was on the team. His name was Robert Turner, and he's running 100, right? And I noticed all the girls were cheering for him. The things that motivate us, right? The things that change the world. So all the girls are cheering for him. So I'm like, hold up, that's not right.
No one was over at the shot put ring.
Oh no, that was back then the shot is the first thing you do. It's like 8 a.m. and So we're done. We're watching the meet and everybody's cheering for the sprinters. So I go to my coach and I said, listen, I need to do a running event. Right? And he's looking at me. He's like, well, there's nothing else. We already have enough people in this. And in this, the only thing left is the hurdles.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, put me in that. Put me in something.
What now? Wait a minute. I love that. No fear. You didn't say, "Oh, wait, no, not the hurdles. Let me do 100 or 200." They said the only thing that was available was hurdles, and you just, all right, let's go try it.
Yep. I said, hey, put me in it, man. Let's get it. So so he put me in the hurdles for the next competition. There was a guy on the team named Chad Owens. Lifelong friend. We were in first grade together all the way through high school. He was doing the hurdles, and he was our quarterback too, right? And he literally helped me pick up the hurdles, right? Every day we get out there, he's like, no, do it this way. And he helped me to learn how to hurdle.
Wow.
So, so first competition, I failed, right? Fine, right? Didn't finish the race. Second competition.
That's tradition. I'm glad you didn't just skate in there and run 13 something. You
exactly.
fell like every hurdler should. Yeah,
That's
good,
right.
good.
That's exactly. Second competition fell again, all right? So now, instead of giving up, now I'm determined.
Nice.
To get it. And that's what happened. So that year, the next race I finished, I ended up being the last person to get into our sectional competition, right? End up being the last person to get into the regional competition.
Huh.
Yeah. Got to the state meet and the light bulb just went off and I won first year running.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You were the last one to make the first round of the playoffs or whatnot, right? Then the second round, you were the last person to make it. And then, so you go to state, no one's looking at you because you're the last one in.
Yep.
And you won the freaking thing?
Yep. Won the state meet. Yeah.
What was the difference? What clicked? You said something clicked.
Yeah, I will tell you. And I hope he would not mind me mentioning his name. I have not seen this guy in years. Right. But you never know. You never know the lives you're changing, how powerful words are. Sure. I tell that to my team all the time. You never know, right? That's how strong words are. But I'll never forget this, right? Shelby is originally where some of my family's from, Shelby and Kings Mountain. Mm. So there was a guy on this team. His name was Nevith Gitney. Great guy, great hurdler. And I think he was the returning state champion, right? And before the race, this guy's just trash talking, right? And I literally said, you know what? That's it, right? That was the light bulb, right? That's what I mean. Wow. That was motivation. And when the gun went off, all I remember is crossing the finish line. And then my life has been in track and field ever since.
We're 5 minutes in. And I don't know that you can tell a better story than that. That is an amazing, because here's what I like about that. First of all, I love what you said about, words matter. And I agree with that. And I thought you were going to tell, I love the story you told there, because I thought it was actually going to be like a positive. Like he told you like, hey, do your trail leg like this. And you're like, all right. And that's what changed, whatever. But it was more of like, oh, wait a minute. I don't care who you are. You're not going to disrespect me. I take that personally. And so I'm going to beat you one way or the other. I'm going to figure it out. And you figure it out that day. That's amazing. But what I really like about that, Duane, go back to your first and second races ever, and you fell down. Mm-hmm. Now, we're old guys now, so we have the pleasure of being able to see things 2020 hindsight, right? And experience. Mm-hmm. That was a fork in the road right there. You didn't see it as a 16, 17-year-old junior, but you could have quit. No one would have said, oh, Duane, you're making the biggest mistake in your life by quitting the hurdles because you fell twice and going back to shot and discus. Like no one would have said anything. They'd be like, all right, well, it's a hard event. Go back to shot and discus, right? Mm-hmm. But you instead were determined. You're like, no, I'm going to, like, I can figure this out. Yeah. And you kept that. So you were at that fork in the road, and you took the fork that has led, and we're going to learn, to just amazing experiences, and really probably led to your career now. I don't know that you would have maybe gone into coaching track and field at such a high level if you wouldn't have kept at it.
Wow. You're absolutely right. I thought I was going to be an NFL Hall of Famer.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Man. Unfortunately, I have a similar story, and I'm not going to share. You and I have talked about this. Only similar in the sense that I also started hurdling my junior year because I thought it was I was like, that's what the cool people are. Like, hurdles are cool. I also fell my first race, but but no, this story does not end with me winning a state championship. This story doesn't even end with me going to state. I'll do the spoiler alert. When we were getting ready for our, qualifying me, I think we called them areas down in Alabama to go to state. I went to my coach and said, hey, I think I need to stop hurdling to focus on the 4x8. Now, if you know about the 4x8, it's the first event. So what does it matter? You need to focus. What do you mean, the 4x8's over by the time you get the hurdles. But I couldn't get my sentence out of, hey, I think I need to stop doing hurdles before my coach was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea. I was like, oh, I was like, man, I was like, you're not even going to fight me out. Like, it was just, I'm like, oh, thank God you came to that solution, kid. Go away. Okay. Wow. State champion your first year. And it wasn't a natural thing to you. It's not like your first race, you popped 14 flat, like you struggled. I love that perseverance. I feel like that's going to be a theme throughout today's episode. I just know it. I just know it. So you win state championship. Are you now a track athlete or are you still a football player?
Oh, I'm still a football guy.
Okay.
You can't convince me that I'm not going to play football. So the next year we football season starts and everything is great. I love football. We had a decent season. I had a decent year. There were some small offers from some small schools. But my intent was football. So this is where the story with the basketball coach comes in. So football season ends, right? Football season ends and I'm going to basketball again. Right. And I'll never forget this, perseverance. Yes, I thrive on that. I tell my team all the time, embrace these things because yes, a lot of things I can attribute to my rise in track and field. So I remember this, I go to the gym, right? All the guys are in there, all my boys, we're always hanging out, they're in there getting ready. Coach White, right? Great guy, about 6'6", just towering over everybody. He meets me at the gym door, doesn't even let me come in the gym. Yeah, meets me at the gym door. And he says, look, son, you're not going to be Michael Jordan.
Carolina, of course. Yeah.
Right. He said, you're not going to be Michael Jordan. He's like, your place is on the track. He literally told me that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So once again, people in your life, the words they say. Yeah.
What an act of selflessness. Now you had to be athletic enough that you could have contributed in some form. Maybe you weren't going to be Jordan, but maybe you were going to be the eighth person off the bench. I don't know. There would have been some purpose for you, and he could have easily hoarded you, right? Your athletic talent, like, oh, let's put him on the team. I'll find some place.
Yeah.
But instead, it was like, what's better for this kid is actually not to be on my team. Go back to track. Like that could be something for you. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Shout out. What was his name again?
Al White.
Shout out to Al White for the selflessness of a coach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we had that at North Gaston. I mean, I had so many teachers in my corner that saw things before I was able to realize them. I mean, my French teacher, Jana Lefevre, I mean, she was so instrumental in my life. I mean, she was always pushing me to do something. She was always a track fan. I mean, this was a lady who, when I was in college, jumping ahead a little bit, when I was in college, before the NCAA championships, she went to the track. Nationals was in Knoxville, Tennessee. She was my high school teacher. She went to the track at Tennessee and walked around the track in lane 4, no lie, and said, hey, called me from a payphone. Said, hey, I just walked around the track, right, where you're going to be, and you're going to win that. This was my high school teacher, my high school French teacher. She did that. Yeah, that's how close these teachers.
Wow.
And I was so blessed that so many of them took an interest, in my life. Because, 18-year-old, 17-year-old, you don't see these type of things.
Right.
And those coaches, my track coaches, my football coaches, my teachers, I mean, they all pushed me to do something better than what I was doing.
Wow. And I bet, I know you well enough, so I know this answer. This is one of those softball questions. You take that as personal responsibility to do it to now younger people, to be Absolutely. That. Yeah. I know you well enough. I was like, that's kind of a toss-up question there easily.
Absolutely.
So senior year. So how did you take when Coach White met you at the door and said, hey, man, you're not going to be Jordan? Yeah.
So heartbroken. I was embarrassed because, my guys they were inside, they're already shooting around, right. Warming up, I mean, literally I was heartbroken, right? I mean, I was embarrassed, but I was like, well, on to the next thing, right? And that's what we did. right? So we started running, and it went from there.
What is it like now? It's only your second year in track, which is amazing. But first year, junior year, no expectations, right? You're just like, okay, this is to get in shape for football for next fall. Now you're coming back. You're starting your senior year as the returning state champ.
Yes.
Different mindset or pressure? How did you take that?
Yes. Very good question, because this is where I learned. This is really where I learned how to handle pressure. Because that year now the expectations are there. So we did some things differently. I tried to run indoors. I had, once again, another coach. He was coaching track and field at another high school, right? They were doing indoor track. They were traveling to Chapel Hill to do competitions. We weren't that advanced with track and field. So my high school coach at North Gaston, his name was Mike Summers. He got with Coach Dixon, who was at Ashbrook at the time, and said, "Hey, take this guy with you, to see these competitions." Once again, people in your life that are trying to make things happen. So I ran indoors that year. I ended up, I think indoor nationals was in Syracuse back then. I got fourth at the national meet. So then outdoors, I can't lose a race. I'm that good now.
Sure.
Right. The expectations there, I can't lose a race. So I get to the state meet and all this expectation is there. Like, hey, this kid is good. Look out for this kid. And I false start. Yeah. That's when I learned, hey, you got to keep your emotions in check.
Wait a minute. You go from not running the hurdles at all to state champ. And then now you're the man, you're all eyes on you, and you false start at the state meet.
In the prelims.
This might be the most roller coaster emotional story ever. Holy cow. So walk us through as you're going through this, because you mentioned you had some offers from some quote unquote smaller schools for football. You obviously did. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. You didn't sign any of those. When did track interest? When did schools start showing interest in you in regards to scholarships?
It was after I won state my junior year. I started getting some interest.
Okay.
But I really wasn't taking it serious.
Because you're still football. You're like, yeah, I'm waiting for the football offer that I want.
Yeah. I wasn't taking it serious. I was, listen, I was in band. I mean, I did a lot of things, I mean, and I was trying to find everything to do other than track and field. Right? I mean, it's just, the interest wasn't there at the time. Right. But my senior year, when I really started getting a lot more interest, I started running a little faster. That's when I was like, okay, all right, maybe I am a track guy. Right. So went there and I made the decision, well, I guess I'm going to go do track. And Clemson came into the picture, where I graduated from. And I love those coaches. Coach Bob Pollock, I know you remember him.
Special.
That was my guy. He was the head coach. Mark Block was recruiting me, who was the sprint coach at the time. They were really just putting a lot. They saw something in me that I didn't see once again. And I couldn't understand that. I was like, okay, I'm running decent, but I'm not, I think I'm a better football player, but they saw something more meaningful.
How did you choose Clemson? You growing up in North Carolina, obviously now you're back in home state. I hope this is a good assumption that North Carolina and NC State, in-state schools were paying attention to you. But you went out of state. Yeah.
So once again, the mind of an 18-year-old boy. So at the time, I thought I was going to go to Chapel Hill. All right. I had narrowed it down to, Chapel Hill and Clemson. And I thought I was going to go to Chapel Hill, in-state, Michael Jordan went there, whatnot. Yeah. So here we go with another story. Right. So the coach from Chapel Hill at the time, Charles Foster, another great
legend.
Guy. Yeah, legend. Right. And that's another reason I wanted to go to Chapel Hill too. This guy was a legend. He was a hurdler. Right. I was like, I'm going to Chapel Hill. This guy used to be the world record holder in the hurdles. Oh man, I'm going there. He calls me and he says, everything's good. You just, you're going to need to take another science class. Right. I was, only had 2 sciences. And at the time you needed 3. And I was like, man, I don't want to take another class. I don't want to go to summer school. I want to hang out with my boys. And so I'm like, torn, like, man, well, I guess I got to go to summer school and take this class. No lie, Mike. Coach Pollock calls me the same night right? And I tell him like, well, I was thinking about going to Chapel Hill, but they're killing me. I got to take a science. And he says in his classic tone, well, hey, we're a South Carolina school. You don't have to take another science. You're good with the two sciences that you have. And plus, if you come here, you're going to be staying in an apartment, not a dorm. I committed right then.
Done.
Yep. And that's how I ended up at Clemson.
I could see that. Like, I can understand that. As far as like another class, like I just did 4 years of class. What do you mean I got to take another class?
Yes.
Especially when the alternative is like, oh, wait, this school will still take me without that class. Yeah, I'm good, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I was a Tiger from that moment on. And then Coach Pauly showed so much class. He drove to my home to sign me. Back then, college coaches could do that. But just the attention to detail and, putting the cherry on top of that recruiting process, man, he, coming to my home, sitting in the living room and telling me, this is the plan. This is what we want you to do. Right. I mean, I don't regret that decision at all. One of the best decisions I've made in my life.
So you get to Clemson, which, by the way, elephant in the room is its own buzzword right now in track and field, obviously. And we'll talk about that potentially here in a little bit. As you get to Clemson, you start acclimating to college. Obviously, that's different from high school, especially from small town high school. What were you going to study? What was the thought process as far as a career, a job in the future?
Well, I was always a numbers guy. So I went into finance. I minored in accounting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was always a numbers guy. I knew immediately I was going to be in something doing with math and making money. So yeah, I went into finance.
Well, that didn't work out too well. You're coaching, yeah. You kept the numbers part. You dropped the money part.
Yeah. Well, I could calculate splits pretty good. Let's say
right.
So, but yeah, so I went into finance and got my major, my degree in financial management, minored in accounting. Later on, I got my master's in sports administration.
Wow.
I do love to learn. I love to read. I love to learn new things. I'm always researching, trying to find a different way to do different things. So yeah, best time of my life at Clemson. Lifelong friends, coaches there were still friends. Just enjoyed it.
Give us a snapshot of how the athletic side of it was going for you.
Oh, it went well. I was pretty good at Clemson. I was pretty good. I had some great coaches who really pushed me. Mark Block, like I said, recruited me. Then Keith Barnier came in later and was my sprint coach. And I was a national champion there and multiple time All-American. Finished up there, got nominated or inducted into the Hall of Fame there at Clemson. So I had a pretty good career at Clemson. We were good. We won ACCs. We finished second at the NCAAs as a team twice. Those were the best years in Clemson history.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's why it hurts so much that they're going through what they're going through down there.
So let's talk about that here for a second, since you brought it up right there. As an alumni and a high-profile alumni, Hall of Fame, obviously doing big things as a professional, as a coach on the professional level, meaning you're getting paid, you're coaching college and stuff. Was there any heads up for alumni? Like, was there any inclination or, okay, no. You're shaking your head no. So tell us then when the news broke, because it's one thing, as track fans, we hear this and our heart is broken. Like, I mean, I thought it was amazing, the Florida State, big Clemson rivals in track and field and all other sports, but big rivals of Clemson, who obviously recruit against, have everything to gain from a Clemson not being good and even dropping track and field. They were one of the first ones I saw that reached out and said, hey, we're supporting Clemson. We want it back, etc. So as track fans, our heart is broken. What was it like as an alum when you heard the news, when the news broke for you?
Oh man, I tell you, I was devastated. I still remember, we all have moments where we remember exactly where we were. I was on the middle of the field. We were at practice and someone sent me a text, and I just happened to look, and during practice, I never checked my phone, right? But just this time, I looked at my text message and I saw that link. And I tell you, I was just all over the place. I couldn't even finish practice. I mean, we immediately, just the phone calls started coming through, all the alumni, like, what's going on? Just no heads up. It's terrible. I mean, my heart went out to those kids, those coaches, us as alumnus and whatnot. I mean, it was just terrible news. Can't put myself in the shoes of anyone else, those administrators over there. So I don't know exactly what's going on and what their reasonings are. It's not my job to question that. I mean, gosh, the explanation that we were given, I mean, just kind of piled on. I mean, it didn't fit. It didn't fit. I mean, and to see something that you've had a hand in building and had a hand in supporting for so many years, right? I mean, it was devastating. I mean, I still go down to Clemson, 2-3 times a year. I go to the football games. I'm still close with a lot of the administrators, some of the guys that work for EP88, which is the booster down there. I mean, we all keep in touch. I mean, it was devastating. Right. I mean, immediately I was just like, man, I'm not going down here anymore. That ain't right.
Right. You brought up a good point about, it's not our jobs to question other people and their decisions. And you had the honor of interviewing Brooks Johnson for the podcast last year. And one of the many, many things that I learned from him, he said, if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on at Clemson.
Yeah.
But when it's 4th and 1, and the play called as a Hail Mary, I do get to question a little bit. It's like, wait a minute. It's not like, we saw some of the financials from Clemson. It wasn't like, oh, they're losing $2 million a year. And so if they cut it, okay, they're going to be back in the black and things like that. And of course, all the, what is it called? The leisure, all the crazy stuff that they're spending money on for the football team. And I don't like to play whataboutisms, like, well, wait, what about this? The bowling alley, what about this? It's more about, well, what about our track team? What can we do to support them? So while, for a lot of track fans and me included, and all of us here at Gill, actually, when we talk about, we weren't in the huddle, so we don't know the play, but boy, it seems like the wrong play was called.
It does. It does. It does. I mean, those guys have done a great job down there building that athletic department. I mean, some great sports down there. Like I said, not judging or questioning. It's just it's tough not to have an emotional response.
Sure.
To that and whatnot. So
you brought up a great way of saying it, because again, it's different from being a fan and even a very close fan for some of us out there. You built it. I mean, the things that team is doing now is built on the shoulders of you and former teammates and people before you, and a great tradition and great history of excellence in track and field, not participation in track and field, but excellence in track and field. So it's extremely tough. Well, we could talk about, and maybe rightfully so, Clemson and the situation. And hopefully, I always go back to the Brown situation. And I think William and Mary did this as well. And Minnesota did it halfway. I applaud when people change their mind, when they realize they did something wrong. Brown University realized, oh, we did something wrong. Let's change our mind. Like, I actually, kudos to you, administration.
Exactly.
You realized, you realized you made the wrong decision and you corrected it. And that's the only thing I can just continue to hope and pray for at Clemson. Is like, oh, okay, AD and board of trustees and whomever else, had a hand in this decision, realize you made a mistake, and people will think higher of you if you will change. Do the right thing, change and make the mistake. Exactly. So before we move on to Clemson and move on to what happened after Clemson, let's bring Clemson back up to a fun light, because I have a story that I heard. A little birdie told me, literally a little birdie on Twitter. So Mr. Sammy Wilcher, he's at FM Sammy on Twitter. He messaged me and asked me. He said, "Hey, ask Duane, does he remember me, Sammy, pushing him into the pool when we had a pool workout?" He says that you had 3 of those aqua vests, those blue aqua vests, to keep you floating. Now, what happened there? Did Sammy push you in the pool?
Sammy pushed me in. First off, I hope Sammy sees this, right? Because first, Sammy, that wasn't just a pool workout. That was our first pool workout, right? And my first pool workout as a freshman at Clemson, right? That can't swim, right? And our coach is looking at me like, "Hey, yes, you are getting in 13 feet of water, right? We're about to do this pool workout, all right?" So I'm sitting there explaining to my coach, like, "Hey, man, I don't feel too good about this, right? I ain't feeling too good about this, right?" And all of a sudden, I'm in the water, and the water's over my head. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, love Sammy to death, but that day, All right. I couldn't get to him fast enough when I got out of the pool. So yes, I remember that, Sammy, as clear as yesterday.
Was Sammy like you eventually learned this because you said this was your freshman year, so maybe you didn't know Sammy all. First of all, did you know Sammy all that well, or was this still
No. We were still getting to know each other. He was, back then the upperclassmen, they hazed the new folks and whatnot, and things like that. So no, didn't know him that well at the time, but hey, great guy, man.
Was he the jokester of the team?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he was. Great guy, smart guy, man. He's and from my understanding, he's doing very well for himself in business. So hey, good to hear from you, Sammy, if you're listening.
Well, Sammy follows me on Twitter, so he must be a really smart guy. Like, I appreciate him. Sammy, thanks for asking that question. That was a lot of fun. I was when your question came in, I was like, oh, wait a minute now. Duane and I have shared a lot of stories. He ain't never shared this story. So
no, I hadn't shared that with anybody. Look, that's one of those memories you put back and
right. Yeah, it's not a memory, that's trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, take us through. You receive your degree from Clemson. Congratulations. Awesome degree. Did you, as you're graduating your senior year, are you still thinking you're going to go into some kind of finance numbers things, or did coaching ever click in your head at this point?
Coaching was never part of the plan. Coaching was never part of the plan. By the time I got to my senior year, my coaches were grooming me for a profession in track and field. Once again, they saw some, people around you, man. That's me, but that's what coaches do, And now I find myself doing the same thing with my student athletes. I mean, they don't see it, and I do, trying to say, hey, listen, this is for you if you do this. My coaches were doing the exact same thing. They were grooming me for life, after collegiate track. So yes, after my senior year, won nationals at the time. It was the third fastest time in collegiate history.
Wow.
So yeah, after that, I went professionally, and I was represented by Nike, sponsored by Nike, and spent a lot of time in Europe competing. Ran professionally for 11 years.
Oh, wow. Is that right?
11 years.
It seems like, I'm a hurdle fanatic. I mean, that's, that was my first love into track and field once I found the hurdles and things like that. And I've just always have been in love with the hurdles ever since then. But it seems like, just outside looking in, as a group, hurdlers, and maybe more specifically high hurdlers, tend to have longer careers than some of these other even distance events and things like that. It just, like, I think of Alan Johnson ran for a long time at a high level, not just running, by the way, but at
very
a high level.
level.
Colin Jackson's, things like that. It just seems like these guys, Terrence Trammell ran for quite a long time as well. It still goes to today. But it's a tough event. I mean, when you go down, you go down. It's not it's a tough event. Just
it'll break you up. It'll break you up. But at the same time, I think that's possible because I think hurdlers tend to be your better athletes. Not to discredit any other.
Says a hurdler, by the way.
Yeah, it says a hurdler. But not to discredit any other event. But come on, I mean, you're talking about going full speed over 3.5 foot barriers. I mean, fast, strong, coordinated, so many different moving parts, and your nervous system, and I mean, you got to be a smart athlete as well. I mean, it's so many different moving parts. I think hurdlers just have to be, great athletes. So I think maybe that's part of the reason. And I mean, you're strong in so many different areas that you can handle that. But yeah, you're right. When you fall, you fall. Listen, I've broken wrist. I had to put a screw on my wrist. I've had knee surgery. I've had 3 broken fingers. Yeah.
From hurdling?
From hurdling.
But maybe you were doing it wrong. What in the heck, man?
Well, you know what, Mike? I have a couple of plaques and medals that say otherwise.
Oh, man. You're pulling that stuff out. Here's what I have learned. And I've worked for some fairly, not as high level as you, but I've worked with some pretty good hurdlers. But whenever I see a hurdler, I can tell if they're good or bad beyond their time. Because, do you know the difference between a good hurdler and a bad hurdler?
No, let me hear it.
A good hurdler has those injuries.
Oh,
they have scars on their shins from when they first started. They have the broken wrist from falling, because a good hurdler, a great hurdler, knows that to be great and to set PRs and things like in the hurdles, you got to be just a teensy beat out of control. You're doing something you've never done. You've never run that fast. You've never gotten your lead leg up and down that fast. It's different. So fractions of a second, you're going to hit and you're going to fall down. You know what a bad hurdler does?
Yeah, he sets up for the hurdle. He tries to clear.
Or they bail. Let me tell you, this guy, no one knows this
Oh,
story.
not Mike Cunningham.
I have bailed on my fair share of hurdles races in high school because I was like, F this, I can't, it felt wrong. I probably was, I'm not gonna say I was on the cusp of greatness for hurdling because that's, that for sure is not there, but I was probably on the cusp of like being an okay hurdler. Like maybe I could have ran 15 flat. That's right, folks. I didn't even run 15 flat. But I'd bail as soon as I felt a little bit of
out of control
discomfort. Yeah. So I got no scars at all. I got no broken wrist. I got none of all that stuff you said. But good and great hurdle. I bet you if we talk to Alan and Colin and all those guys I mentioned, I bet you they're like, oh yeah, I got this scar here. I cut up my hammy doing that. You gotta be out of control.
Yeah, you do.
Be great.
That's right. I tell my hurdlers the same thing all the time. You have to be at that point of out of control to run the type of times we're trying to run. You're absolutely right. But you know what? It's two extremes. Hey, it's either, like you said, either you were the smart one and we were the crazy one, or I mean, it could go either way.
Well, I got no plaques, so and I didn't run 11 years. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
When did you know it was time to hang it up? And on top of that, did you have a plan for?
Oh yeah.
You had to make money still. So did you have a plan for professionalism or a job after that?
Oh yeah. If nothing else, Mike, I'm methodical, right? I plan ahead. So even when I was competing, I got my investment license. I was a licensed investment advisor. Yeah. So yeah, I had my own book of business. I was investing money. Had book of business. So I was setting up for that, and I had always planned for 2004 to be my last go round. That was the Olympics in Athens. Around 1999, 2000, I went ahead and started setting myself up into the financial business. Got all the licensing I needed because I'm saying, hey, after track, this is what I'm going into. So I was prepared. I didn't go out the way I wanted to. I thought, and every athlete thinks this, you're going out in a blaze of glory. One thing I didn't want to do was be one of those athletes that, still out there, still has the love for it and whatnot, but, hasn't really prepared for life after. I hate to see that. I hate to see athletes go past their prime. It's, I'd love the passion for it, but I hate to see, up here and then all of a sudden, struggling down here. I hate that. And I never wanted to be in that area. So 2004 was going to be the last one. But unfortunately, around 2003, going into 2004, I started having some real bad back pain. Yeah. And all that junk, it's going to happen. 11 years, you don't do that and not, have the wear and tear.
At that level, for sure.
Yeah. So it was a disc, that was just kept hitting the nerve. It was just over time, man, just all the pounding. And I saw so many doctors here in the US, so many doctors there in Europe, and all of them had the same consensus, like, hey man, if you don't stop at some point, you're just going to tear that cartilage apart, right? And it literally got to a point where I just couldn't deal with the pain anymore. And I just made the decision, it's time to move on. And I had to make a hard cut. All right. So 2004 came, Olympics didn't go as I wanted it to go. I finished, I think it was 9th, just not a great Olympic Games. So I said, okay, you know what, 2005 is going to be it. I got to go out on top, even still dealing with the back pain. And I'll never forget this. We had USA Championships out in California. And I was out warming up. They had us warming up on this big old field. And at this time, I got a family. My son, is here. And I'm out on this big field warming up, just pretty lush grass, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, I could really be flying a kite. It was a nice windy day. I was like, I really could be flying a kite with my kid right now. That was the moment I said, okay, this is the last race. I've never been in a warm up and not been focused and not been ready to race. And that moment right there was I said, it's time.
Wow. Did you run, you ran the race?
No, let me tell you what I did. I got in the blocks, all right? The gun went off, everybody went. I walked to the side, walked down to the finish line. Yeah, I got my stuff. Wow. I walked back to the warm-up area and I tossed my spikes in the trash. Yeah. It had to be that, for me, it had to be that hard cut. And it was symbolic. I shouldn't have thrown those spikes away, but it was, But for me, it was symbolic. It was the hard cut. It was
Yeah.
like, hey, make a decision, stick with it, and get on with your life.
Because at that point, it's 16, 17 years of racing and, you know, expectations and pressure. And now at that point, you mentioned thinking about your son, priorities change as well. Not only you have some health things, obviously with the back and things like that, but priorities were changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I had a good career. You know, obviously some ups and downs, but that's what life is. You know, that's what it is. You learn from them and you get better. But I wouldn't change a thing. I enjoyed it. It put me at a point where I am now. You know, and I'm extremely happy with, you know, where we are.
So the plan was to go into financial planning and investments and things like that.
Yep.
But you're a coach. So how did that,
Yeah.
where did that come along?
I know, right? All over the place.
Part of the plan.
Yeah. So I did that. I went into financial planning, right? Was doing pretty well at that. And, you know, and I realized after a couple of years that I just missed it. It was, you know, and it wasn't the competition. Of course I missed the competition, but it was just everything. Listen, you know, here now I've gone from being on the track every day, you know, taking care of my body, you know, being in that environment, adrenaline, to now I'm putting on a suit every day. Right. And I'm around guys that are drinking coffee all day, you know, let's go to lunch, you know, this is not my life.
Right.
You know, so some great guys, man. I still keep in touch with those guys, you know, and I have some good memories from that time, but it was just, it wasn't my world.
It wasn't you.
So in 2006, I said, you know what? I got to get back into track and field somehow. So I started coaching. I was coaching with a youth club here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I loved it. Just coaching kids, just being around it, you know, sharing that knowledge and, you know, and with them. And it just gives you a whole new perspective when you're dealing with 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds. So yeah, I started there. And then an hour down the road in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a small Division III school, Methodist University. I noticed one day they had an opening, right, for track and field, right? And I was like, you know what, this might be, because at this point, I'm not looking to be, you know, this grandioso coach. You know, I'm doing it because I love to do it. I want to give back. You know, I love being around it. So yeah, I reached out. I went down there. I interviewed. You know, they gave me the job. The AD at the time, he said, "Listen, build me a program. We don't care about the wins right now. You know, Division III. You know, it's about the kids. You know, they run because they want to. You know, just build us a program, right?" So that's not good enough for me. So I went in and, you know, I was there 5 years. We had 9 national champions. We had athlete of the year. We had some Division III collegiate best. I mean, we had, in 5 years, we turned that program around and had a lot of success.
Were you hooked from the get-go? So the process of coaching collegiately, you'd been on the other side, being coached collegiately. What was it about the process that just drew you right in?
Oh man, it was, I'm telling you, it was just about the teaching part. You know, as I told you earlier, I love to learn new things, and then seeing these kids learn something, you know, and realize something new. I mean, it was a great, I was hooked immediately. I mean, and look, I started that, when I took that program over, we had 1 woman on the team and 5 guys. I mean, it was literally 6 people on the team, maybe 7. You know, so it was an opportunity for me to build something from the ground up, right, and make something of it. And anybody who knows me will tell you that is my thing. I love, let me just get out of my way and let me do it. Right?
So that's a very stereotypically small town, do-it-yourself type of attitude, right? But yet you went from there, from small town North Carolina to big time. You went to ACC and were national champion. You raced collegiately, raced professionally. Went to the Olympics. There is no higher, right? How did you? You know, I'm always fascinated by the ego. And a lot of times we think of ego as a negative, and it can be, but it also is a positive, right? If we don't have ego, then we don't have pride sometimes in what we do.
That's right.
That's where the positivity of ego can be. But then on the negative side of ego, you know, you've been there, you've been to the bright lights, big city, so to speak, of the Olympics, and yet you go to, another small town in your home state. So maybe that played into it, but you go to a program that had 6 athletes.
Yeah.
You're Duane Mofo Ross. How did you, for lack of a better term, check your ego of like, okay, this is where I am. Let's create success.
Good question. And I'll answer it with this. Yes, you do have to have that edge about you, that confidence, that ego, right? But I was always in a place where I always reminded myself that anyone can be beaten, right? That all of this can be taken away from you at any moment, right? That was something I always prepared myself for. So I was always able to, I have no problem with working. I had no problem saying, hey, yeah, I'm an Olympian, but let me start here at this Division III school. I had no problem with that, right? I mean, I've always kept that in check. Like, hey, I love to do what I do. I do try to keep my priorities together, my values together, and I love to do what I do. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered if I was coaching high school. I would have tried to be the best high school coach and whatnot. So yeah, I think I've done a decent job with keeping uh, my ego together to a point where it's never out of hand, where I feel like I'm the best at it. There'll never be anyone that could do it better. No, I understand. Listen, hopefully one day when I'm done coaching, and A&T brings in someone else, I hope that guy will come in and outdo what we've done, right? I mean, that's the plan. I'm a steward of this program. I'm here to hold it in place, right? Make it better for the next guy.
Right.
Yeah. So
what I love about you saying that is, having known you now, really your entire coaching career. I remember when you called me when you're at Methodist. I think our first thing we did was a tent, if I remember correct. But what I love about you saying that is how, me from the outside, I can think about the past 15 years or so, my experience with you, and how you've shown exactly what you've just said. So I remember your first phone call to me when you're at Methodist. And so we're talking about, like, I think it was a tent or something like that. But then, again, remember I said, I love the hurdles. So I was like, we got done with our conversation. And I was like, well, hey, I was like, do you mind me asking you something? And you're like, yeah, sure. What's up, man? And I was like, so I used to know of a Duane Ross that was a really good hurdler. Are you him? And you were like, and you chuckled probably like that. And you're like, yeah, I was him. And, I just fanboyed. I was like, oh my God, Duane, come on, man. That was, you did this and this and this and this and this. I was just like geeked out about that. And so that's when you were a beginning, D3 Methodist beginning program, even coach. And now today, where you're winning Coach of the Year honors and you're coaching All-Americans and you're in the hunt for national titles and things like that. The best compliment I can give you, my friend, is you are the exact same person then as you are now. You are still the humblest, hardworking. I don't care if Methodist is on my chest or NCA&T or Clemson. You are Duane Ross, so you're going to put your product and hold yourself to a high level of humility with the right splash of ego. So
that's right.
sorry, off track there. I just that's just made me think about that when you brought up Methodist. I was like, oh yeah, wait a minute, that's where we met.
Yeah, that's right.
You're the same person. I mean, you're doing bigger and better things, quote unquote, whatever, however you define that, right? Because you obviously did big and better things for a lot of kids at Methodist that wouldn't have had those experiences without you.
Yeah.
So
thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, you're very welcome. So what I wanted to ask is, so when you were at a Methodist and even at NCA&T, and did you went from Methodist to NCA&T?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So how does your story of being not being a hurdler and then becoming a hurdler quickly, but yet also being a hurdler and then false starting, how does that story play into your recruiting when you see kids who are maybe 15 flat or 14 something, they're not the 13 fives out of high school? Does that play into it at all in your recruiting?
Oh, absolutely. Every kid I recruit, I recruit on a personal level. Obviously, A&T is a great institution, and we sell A&T and the different majors and things like that, and the culture and the environment. But the majority of student athletes that come to run track here, they're here because of a relationship with the coaching staff, right? So yes, I do share that story because I want them to have the same experiences, the same joys, the same memories as I had. And I had a great relationship with my coaches. It wasn't always pleasant. Sometimes, I was, getting yelled at, chewed out, getting sent home. But at the end of the day, I loved my coaches because I knew they wanted the best for me. So I strive to try to have that same relationship, with our student athletes. And I tell our recruits, I tell them up front, hey, listen, if you're looking to come somewhere, right, and be on vacation and just skate through, it's not going to happen. Right. I mean, we work hard, the expectation is there. I'm going to push even when you think you don't have any more. I'm going to push to get more. Right. So if this is something that you like, then this is where you need to be. If not, hey, I wish you best, and let's move on. So yeah, that personal relationship is extremely important.
I'd love to meet anybody who thinks going to Greensboro, North Carolina is vacation. Like you only go to Greensboro to work. And I mean that in all the right ways.
That's right.
Great town that's held some amazing, track history at Greensboro, not just at A&T, but, a lot of the meets that have been there. So, but Greensboro is not where I'm thinking about when I think about vacation. So
vacation, exactly.
You got to go to work when you go into A&T.
That's right.
Well, let's get into NC A&T. You've been there for, I think this is going into your 9th season.
Yep, starting a 9th season.
And when I mentioned, reached out to the Twitterverse and said, hey, what questions do you have for Coach Ross here? That is where the majority of questions came from. If you're looking on YouTube, maybe, I don't know, can you see if I do the green screen?
Yeah,
here?
I can see a little bit of what you got going.
There are all these questions. So let's get into a few. A lot of questions from like good friends, DeAndre Woods, who's now Concordia Irvine, I think he's at now, Coach Lamont Johnson, just some great questions here about culture and environment. So what are some of the ways that you have set up here in the past 9 years that you have changed the culture to a championship culture that you clearly, again, from the outside, right? I'm not in your huddle, but from the outside, as far as performance levels, the culture seems to be one of like, you come here to win championships, to contribute to championships and become a champion. So what are some of the things and where did you learn them from that have brought you to that, the program to that level?
Yeah, well, I think all the experiences that I've had in my life, not just in track and field, but just in general, my entire life, being able to, deal with adversity and get better, and inspire and say, hey, take it on the chin. That's one of my classic sayings to my kids. Hey, take it on the chin and let's move on, right? Let's not sulk. Everybody's going to lose a race. You're not going to win them all. Take it on the chin and let's move on. So I think all of my experiences during my lifetime has helped me to, establish the culture that we have here at A&T. First and foremost, when I took over at A&T, they were in some disarray. Coach Spaceman, I know you know who he is, Coach Thompson. He had left. He'd been there for so many years. I mean, great coach. And I do things a certain way in my life, and I believe this. I don't chase money. I do things because I want to do them. And before I took that position, even though Coach Thompson was not in that position anymore, right? It had to be a situation where it was okay for him, right? That I took that position. And one of the reasons, and I've never spoken about this to anyone, not our administration, not my coaching staff, but during my career, you always saw Coach Thompson at competitions, man, just the greatest guy, right? And what I can say about that is that this was a man, and still is a man, that just wanted to see everyone do good. This was a track and field guy. And you know what I mean by that. A track and field guy wants to see everyone do well, right? It's not, it's not trying to put anyone else down, right? Just wants to see everyone do well, right? So when he left that position and that position became open, and I was, thought of for it, I reached out, through him and through some other people, that, were friends of his and had been in track and field for a long time. Because I wanted it to be sure that, hey, or be known that, hey, listen, this is to continue building on what you've done here, right? You were a steward of that program, just like I'll be the next steward of this program, right? It's my job to not come in and replace, but to continue building, right? And he's one of our biggest supporters, to this day. So that was important for me to, establish that relationship with him and, and for lack of a better term, get that blessing that, hey, coach, go do your thing. So, yeah, so I came in and, and kind of changed things and did it my way. And the first thing I did was, as you mentioned, that culture, right? The expectation. And the biggest challenge was our identity, right? Was our identity, right? Convincing the student athletes that were coming there, right? That listen, it doesn't matter what logo is on your uniform, right? Everybody does 200s, everybody does 150s, everybody does the same workout at some point, right? But what's going to separate you from that team there? That was the hardest part. I mean, people ask me all the time, what are we doing here? And you summed it up. It's our culture now, right? That was the hardest part. I mean, I brought in some coaches that can coach. I got a great coaching staff, right? There's some great coaches out there, right? You bring in some coaches that can coach, but hey, if those kids don't believe, right? If that energy and that environment is not right, then you're just spinning your wheels, right? We spent more time on developing ourselves as coaches, developing that culture and those athletes and what we wanted to do, right? That now is a machine, right? And we don't have to keep driving home that point. The kids do it themselves. Since day one, when I stepped foot at A&T, I said, hey, listen, the goal was to win a national championship. Quick story. Listen, I met with our alumni, right? You know, the head coaches, you know, you meet with the alumni organization. And my very first meeting with our alumni, you know, it's called the Aggie Athletic Foundation, right? Great. I mean, anyone knows about A&T, they know this alumni base is just incredible, right? They diehard Aggies, right? I mean, we'll give till it hurts to see this athletic program do well. But there was one guy, right, in this meeting, my very first meeting, when I spoke of winning a national championship, this guy, remember what I said to you earlier, how words, man, just are so important. I never forget this, my very first meeting with our alumni. This guy said, win a national championship, you're too ambitious. You can't do that here. Yes.
Now, having heard your senior year or junior year story at state meet, I see how that plays out.
Yes.
That was not that you needed it, but it feels like that was more fire.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. That was the catalyst there. I'm like, you know what? Okay. All right. And I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten him. Yeah. My first meeting with them telling what my plans are. So now here we are. So yes, it wasn't just changing the hearts and minds of our student athletes. It was changing the hearts and minds of everyone involved with track and field, you know, at North Carolina A&T, you know, and here we are.
Now, it seems like you started from the get-go with this type of attitude in regards to culture and changing expectations. Where did that come from? This is your second coaching job, it is your second coaching job. So it's not like you had gone on to a couple different institutions and under different bosses and such. You have built this from day one. Now I assume there's probably some things from your coaches that you've had, but where did this like understanding of like, oh, culture is what matters from the get-go type of attitude come from?
Well, you're right. I have been blessed to be around some great coaches. My coaches at Clemson, as I mentioned, were great. And just former athletes. I mean, I've always been around, you know, people who have always, not everyone, but, you know, I keep my circle pretty tight, you know, and we're always encouraging each other, right? Even, you know, when it looks impossible, like, listen, right? Take it on the chin, you know, and let's keep moving. So I think all of my life, you know, just going through these different experiences has set me up for this. And like I said, it's not just track and field. You know, you and I have spoken about our, you know, some personal things in our lives. You know, my father passed away when I was young, and you know, and I was, you know, unfortunately in that area. I mean, that's tough for a kid to see and go through, right? And my sister and I, you know, I mean, you know, we're thick as thieves. You know, we've spent time, you know, away from our family, you know, on down times, you know, and where I had to take care of her. You know, it's, you know, life has taught me to, hey, you make the best of it, right? And you keep it moving, right? You don't quit, right? You take it on the chin. It might be a loss today, right? But tomorrow's a different day, right? And I just tried to live my life like that, you know, and I try to instill that in our program, right? I mean, it was tough. I mean, look, we took some L's. You know, when I took over at A&T, we took some L's, man. It got to a point, you know, those early years, you know, I'm scratching my head like, okay, you know, what am I doing wrong? You know, what am I doing wrong? You know, and then I had to, you know, realize it's not that I'm doing anything wrong. I'm just doing it different, right? And there's a million ways to do a million different things, right? But if this is going to be the way that you do it, D. Ross, this is me talking to myself, D. Ross, if this is the way you're going to do it, then you got to do it better than anyone else, right? So you got to continue, you know, research, learn, find better ways to do it, right? And that's what we do. Like I said, I get the question all the time, you know, what is A&T doing? You know, what's different, right? I'll tell you what's different, right, is the energy, the environment that we bring, you know, to our program, right? We're lifelong learners. You look, 10 years from now, if I'm still coaching Mike and you and I doing this podcast, right, I'll still be telling you, last night I was reading up on this. That's just what I love to do, right? I mean, we have to be lifelong learners. I'll never be one of those coaches that's sitting back and saying, oh, well, this is the way I've always done it, so this is the way I'm gonna keep doing it. No, everything, man, I mean, changes. You know, my workout plans, everything, right? I mean, it changes from year to year because I'm always trying to figure out a better way to do it. So I think that right there, and like our kids understand that, right? I think that has contributed to why we're having the success that we're having.
I like your mantra there, if you will, take it on the chin, because to me that expresses like hope of like, oh, I can take it on the chin and it will get better. You know, I like it because it's seemingly defeatist at first, like, oh, taking the chin, like, oh, I'm getting knocked out, you know, I'm going to lose, yada yada. But it's more of the attitude of like, oh, I can weather the blow.
That's right.
And I can come back and still win, right?
Exactly.
And I love that attitude because we're, you know, at the end of the day, we're talking about in the collegiate level, specifically 18 to 22-year-olds. They've gone 18 years. Most of us, maybe all of us, have setbacks. And we all have those decisions. You had a decision to stick with the hurdles or not stick with the hurdles. And you in the past, these kids have that same thing. And so to have that leader, that mentor, if you will, of, hey man, life is not rosy. It is not perfect.
It is not.
And thank goodness, because that teaches us lessons to become better as we move along. Let's unpack some of the things you just said there. That was awesome. And a lot of it pertains to some of the questions we have here from Twitter. You talked about, you know, coaches are always asking you what is different, what are you doing at A&T and things like that. Coach Mastretti, a good friend of ours down at Southeast Louisiana, his question was, what's in the water? I think we just learned that there's nothing in the water. It's what's in the coaching staff and maybe even higher than that, what's in the philosophy, the culture of the program. Kenneth Johnson asked, I love these type of questions. He just asked how. Like, what are you doing? I love that. But you did mention about getting better and evolving is the word you used. DeAndre, and also a friend of ours here, Regan Beal, Sensei Ray on Twitter, who says, welcome to the Big South, by the way.
Oh yeah, appreciate
new conference. Yeah. They both asked, how has your training and your programming, and you know, we don't talk about specifically about how to train kids, but overall your philosophy, how has it evolved over the 9 years? What are some of the things you've learned and, you know, okay, that didn't work, so push it to the side and evolve this way. What are some of the things that you've learned over 9 years?
Yeah. Okay. So just touch on that lightly. I've learned a lot. Clearly, I've learned a lot, and I use every year as a learning year. Right. It doesn't matter how long you coach, man. The year prior has got to be a learning year, right, to set you up for the upcoming year. That's my opinion. But I've learned during this time, I've learned the importance of recovery. I've really learned the importance of that. We train very intensely. You know, we train very smart, right? And before, as I mentioned, when I first got here, you know, just the energy, anticipation, wanting your kids to do so well, right? Sometimes you get to a point where you just want to train them, right? Well, I've learned patience, you know, doing this evolution. I've learned patience. You know, I've learned to, you know, pay closer attention, right, to our athletes, not just doing the workout, right, but how they approach practice, right? You know, how they're ending practice, you know, their energy, you know, paying attention to those things, you know, knowing when this kid may need a little bit more recovery, knowing when you can get a little bit more out of this kid, right? Nothing that we do is conventional. Nothing I do is conventional. You're liable to come to practice and I have, you know, 10 athletes doing something different, right? Just because, you know, just paying a close attention, right, to what each one is doing, how their energy is, and what we've done prior to this workout. And the other thing I learned to do better, right, was to take notes, right? I literally do spend too much time working at home. I try to get a lot of stuff done before I come home. But what I do is, I record the day's workout. I come home and I log in, what I want to log in, right? So I have a plan, like for the day's workout. I have a plan on what we're going to do, right? But when I get there, right, we either follow through with the plan or we might make some adjustments here and there. But whatever the case may be, I note that, right? I record that, right? And I record how they did, how their times were, whatnot. I've learned to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more methodical in that process, right? Because as I tell recruits when I'm recruiting them, it's not rocket science, but it is a science to it, right? I mean, the human body is like that. The human mind is like that. I mean, you have to, you have to be, methodical in this process. So doing that evolution, like I said, I've learned a lot of different things. A lot of the workouts are still the same, right? I've tailored them to some athletes differently and whatnot, but I've learned the importance of recovery, how I structure our workouts, right? When to push, when not to push, when some athletes just need, when they need just a pat on the back, hey, good job today, let's call it quits. And when another athlete needs to have that tail chewed out, that wasn't good enough, do it again, right? But this is coaching, right? This is what we're always learning. As I mentioned, there'll never be a point where I'll be sitting back saying, hey, I know it all, right? I've got it figured out. I don't have it figured out. I'm still figuring it out, right? But that's why our kids continue to get better. And that's one of the things I'm proud of the most. If you look at our history since I've been here, how every year the team gets better, right? The team gets better. The recruiting class gets better, right? Because we figure out what we did in the prior year, right? Okay, let's make these changes. Let's make it better. Let's fix it, right? Right? If we had a bad recruiting class, let's take it on the chin, figure out how we can get better, right? So every year the program gets better and better and better. And that's why I'm confident when I say we're going to win a national championship. And I'll say that to anyone, right? I've been saying it for years, like it's going to come, it's coming, and we're going to do it because that's the trajectory that we're on, right? And the trajectory that I refuse to get off of, right? So it's going to happen.
The last thing I'm going to do is doubt you. All right, let's just put that on the table. You talked about that your nature is to take a lot of notes and things like that, and you come home and record the workouts and things like that. What are you using for younger coaches that are searching for like their style, if you will, not coaching, but like how do I the outside of being on the track portion. So how do I take notes, or what do I record? What do I keep? How do I utilize that? What do you, or is this just like, are you a Word document? Or are you a journaling? What are you doing?
Pen and pad, nothing. Hey, look, I'm nothing beats pen and pad, baby. You know what? Nothing beats pen and pad. Listen, you know what I got for Christmas? I got these nice leather journals.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're so nice. I was like, I don't want to write in them. Right. But, but because I'm always taking notes, right? Because I'm always putting down my thoughts, how we can do this better, how we do this better, right? That was one of my main Christmas gifts was, that stack of journals. So yeah, I'm pen and pad because you know what? I can always go back to it, right? And I do. I go back to stuff from 5 years ago, and look at things like that. And one other thing I'll mention, all these workouts and, coaches giving things online and things like that. Let me tell you, I love that. I love that. Even if someone is giving what some people may think is wrong. As I said, there's no right or wrong. There's just, different ways of doing it. Right. I listen to all of that. Right. You'd be surprised. I'll go on to YouTube or, other places to find what people are doing. Right. And I'll even listen to what high school coaches, what their intake is on running the 400, running the 200, what they think sprinting is, right? Because if I just take one thing from that guy, right, that can make a difference here, right, then hey, I'm good. But yes, I listen to all of that, man. Everyone has something to give, right? And I'm big on that. So hey, you coaches out there, keep it up, because you know what? Hey, I'm listening. I pay attention to that stuff.
Anybody who complains about when you win the national championship, they can just blame themselves. Like, well, you talked, he listened.
That's right.
You put into action.
That's right. That's right.
Something that caught my attention when you talked about the evolution of what you've done coaching wise, and the main point you were talking about is with your athletes is recovery, which I think is a very common for good coaches anyway. When we first start coaching, it's like, oh, I just want to do it all. I just want to
Yes.
throw it all at the athletes. And then you learn that, oh, wait, recovery, you either plan recovery or the body forces you to recovery injury, right?
Yep, exactly.
What I want to know is, so you're a hard worker. Every coach worth their salt I know of is a coach 24/7. They don't hang up their hat when they come home. You're still a coach, especially in today's social media and cell phone world, right? What are you doing, and how has it evolved for you personally, but also as the head coach who's responsible for a staff? And you've had some awesome assistant coach. Like, I'm always amazed. Every assistant coach you've ever had that I've gotten to meet, it's like, oh wow, you're freaking awesome. Like, how's this guy attracting all these people? But what have you done personally, and what do you take as your responsibility as the head coach of the coaching staff for your own recovery? So we can't work 24/7 as much as we try. How's that evolved as far as that side of it, and has it?
It's gotten better. It has gotten better. I will say that I need to do better myself with that, because as much as I try not to bring work home, I will come home and, like I said, I'm logging notes and doing things. And before you know it, I've watched another 2-hour video, something, right? So I try to do better with that. I need to, but I do believe I do a better job with my assistant coaches, because I make them take off, right? I mean, some of them don't like it, but sometimes I'll mandate, hey, listen, everybody's off, right, for the next 2 days, right? Don't come in, don't do this, because we need that. We need that. Even coming off of, COVID, where we had all this time off, when we got back into it, right, we were just so gung-ho, all this pent up energy. Everybody wanted to coach, everybody wanted to do this. It was the same thing. Hey, you know what? Go home, go see your family, right? Go home for Christmas, stay a couple extra days. Because we need that as well. We need to recharge and enjoy our families and and enjoy life. Track it's what we love, it's our passion. But come on, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small blip on that scale, right? So we need to make sure we balance everything correctly. So we're still getting better at that. We're not perfect, but we're getting better.
Yeah, I'm gonna challenge you, because I know you, and then the coaches that are listening. We just came through a year of COVID where, much like recovery that I just gave that example, we were forced into recovering as coaches, right? There were no track meets, there were no track practices, so you've kind of gotten a taste of what I want to say normal life would be, more 9-to-5 type jobs.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I'm a challenge you and the rest of the coaching body to think about that daily life, because we want you coaching for a long time. I don't want you burning out, right? I want you coaching at 60, and there's plenty of great coaches that have gone to 70 and 80 years old out there. But that mental health side of it is extremely important. It's the only job that I can think of that we do 24/7, meaning the examples you gave. You wake up and you start thinking track, then you go in the office, and then you have track practice. You come home, you watch a 2-hour video. You get texts from athletes or your assistant coaches. You're talking about the schedule this weekend or what meets you're going to go to next season. No other job. A doctor, which is extremely important. Like, they do studying and things like that. A doctor does not come home every night and watch surgeries on YouTube.
That's right.
In your former world, accountants and financial planners, they don't come home and then pour over the stock market page or go to online and look at Motley Fool and all that stuff.
Exactly.
They're there with their families, and they're like, all right, someone needs me, a client needs me, I'll see you at 8 o'clock in the morning when I clock back in.
9 to 5.
And I don't know that it necessarily needs to be back to that traditional 9 to 5 or whatnot. However, I do want to see coaches enjoy the sport, and more importantly, not have regrets to where they miss out on time with family and time with friends and hobbies that aren't. If you're a track coach and your hobby is going to track meets, please find a different hobby. Enjoy track and field, but let's have some different hobbies out there that will help you enjoy and enrich your career much more than going to another track meet. You mentioned reading. Good friend Udon Cheek of the podcast asked, are there any books that you particularly believe played any major role in your coaching philosophy or style? What you got?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And Mike, if you haven't read this will be a good book for you too. It's called Extreme Ownership. All right. I love this book. I've read it twice. Extreme Ownership. right, listen, I'm giving this guy some pub here, right? Some marketing, but it's a great book, right? It was written by a former Navy SEAL, right? And I mean, and it was about how taking ownership of everything in your world, in your circle, right? And which I make a point to do with everything, my coaching staff. And just to give you an example, I mean, we know if an assistant coach makes a recruiting violation, that falls on the head coach. Well, you know what? It should, right? And this is why, because I either didn't instruct that assistant coach, right? That I didn't reinforce the rules, get better enough, right? Yeah, they should have known the rules, but it's my job to make sure that they know the rules, that they don't do that, right? So that's an excellent book. Like I said, I've read it twice. It's on my bookshelf. It teaches so many lessons in it because, like I said, as a former Navy SEAL, when he was, in the war and in Afghanistan, how, he learned and how he taught his his soldiers and people under him how to take ownership of everything around them, and it made their unit just that much better, right? So yes, Don, that's an excellent book, right? If I could suggest that.
I love book recommendation because I'm a reader as well, so that's like, oh, okay, library, extreme ownership, love it.
You love it, man. And just the stories, it's not one of those typical motivational books that you get, right, with the cliches. This guy, right? It's about the stories, that they went through in Afghanistan, right, during these battles and whatnot, right, and how we can, turn around and put that to real life, to what we're doing in our job space. Excellent book.
Do you utilize that type of personal responsibility with your athletes and coaching staff as well?
I certainly do. My coaching staff will tell you, they hear that all the time, right? Because I tell them, hey, extreme ownership, right? No excuses. Like, listen, like if I make a mistake with my athletic director, hey, I own it. Hey, that was my mistake, right? I'll fix it. Here's a solution, right? I'm not coming in with excuses. Oh, well, so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that. No, that's not how we get better, right? It's extreme ownership. If it happened under my watch, then it happened under my watch. I'm responsible. And I teach my student athletes that, right? Hey, there's no excuses. You come late, right? I had a kid come late to practice one day last week, right? And of course, the kid was in traffic. I was in traffic, right? Okay, but right. When he walked down the steps, I said, "Why are you late?" Before he could get it out of his mouth, because I saw him going there to say traffic, but before he could get it out of his mouth, he was like, "My bad, coach. Won't happen again." And that's what I'm talking about, right?
As someone who hires people, let me tell you what, if someone were to give me that, the hashtag no excuses, like that's where I got respect. It's like, all right, your excuses don't help me.
Don't help. Yeah.
You owning it and saying, all right, I'm gonna do better, and then doing better. Like, oh my goodness, that's the type of people we want to hire. That's the type of people that get jobs. That's the type of people that maybe get jobs they're not ready for. But it's like, well, if someone's gonna get ready, a guy like that will have the right attitude to get ready for the job. Wow, I love that. So you talked about recruiting. A couple of great questions from Lamont Johnson over at Johnson C. Smith. I actually don't know her name. She's one of my best friends on Twitter. She goes by Auntie Throw Something. She is one of the most, if you're not following her on Twitter, you got to. She is just all positive, all energy, focuses on the throws, obviously. She's down in Texas. She actually sent me a shirt. We've never even met. I can't wait to meet this young lady because she's just so awesome. But they have a lot of great questions about recruiting and specifically recruiting at A&T. So like Lamont wants to know, he asked about like how many majors does A&T and does that play a role into recruiting? So talk to us about like, what are people coming to study at A&T? And then on top of that, and you don't really actually have a lot of experience with this, meaning other examples, but he wants to know, how does your AD and president support that side of your program as it relates to recruiting, and he asked specifically, like, how does it separate from other AD president combos, which you may not have? I don't know. I assume you haven't had that many president AD combos at A&T in 9 years. Yeah. So talk to us about recruiting. What are people coming to study in, and how is the support from your administration?
Okay. Well, A&T has about 117 different majors, right? But let me tell you, A&T is known. It's known for engineering. Very strong engineering program. In athletics, kinesiology, athletic training, psychology is very strong. Liberal studies is a very strong major here. It's a great institution. Let me tell you one of the mistakes other coaches make in recruiting against us, right? Yeah, this is.
Are you willing to give the, this is recorded, like
I know, but you know what? I'm going to say it because it needs to be said.
let's
right?
hear it.
Yeah, one of the mistakes other coaches make recruiting against us, right, is believing, that stereotype that an HBCU doesn't have the same resources. Right?
Okay.
It's the biggest mistake they make, right? Okay, another school, let's use Clemson for example, my alma mater. They may have a bigger bank account, right? But who cares, right? We have a track, we have a weight room, right? We have capable coaches, right? And we have a support staff and administration, a chancellor and athletic director who support us fully, right? So what else do we really need, right? So, but I get that all the time. I get those questions all the time. How are you getting these recruits? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? That's the biggest mistake they make, right? I mean, that is a terrible stereotype, right? It's that, HBCUs are a low resource institution, right? That we don't have this, that we don't have that. You know what? Keep believing that, right? And I'll keep doing what we're doing and whatnot. So I'm proud of what we have. Like I said, listen, my AD and my chancellor, two of the greatest people they are, right? And not just because they support what I'm doing, right? Because they're just good people, right? They're good people. They could come down the day after we've taken a beating on the track, right? And still laugh and have a good time because we understand the bigger picture, right? We understand the vision of what we're doing, right? We know with these student athletes, right? When you have that type of support, and we have that from academics to facilities, the budgeting. I mean, everyone wants to see track and field do well, right? And I sincerely believe it's because we have our values together. I have a great staff. We love to do. Man, come on, Mike. You know how it is, man. Being around someone that loves to do what they love to do, win or lose. Yeah. I mean, that is contagious. It's contagious, right? So our support staff is great around here. Right. But like I said, that's the mistake they make. Right. They sit back, A&T doesn't have, I've heard it numerous times from different recruits. Right. I just laugh it off. Right. I just laugh it off and I'll sign that recruit. Right. And that recruit is doing their job the very next year. But not. So, hey, that's what we do.
What a great point right there that, attitude is contagious. And sadly, it's not just positive attitude, negative attitude is contagious. Yeah. And I've always believed that if you recruit negatively, not only, talking about other institutions and on a negative light and things like that and other coaches, but that's contagious. And it's like, you want someone who's attracted to you because you badmouth other people? Well, because what do you think that kid's going to do to you?
Exactly.
First time they disagree with you, like it just doesn't make sense. Exactly. So let's keep on that theme because, it's rare that a coach will go viral in today's social media world. As much as everything goes viral, but in track and field, the coach doesn't normally go viral. It's usually the athlete for doing something. Hopefully it's usually for doing something positive, right? Right now, our good friend Ryan Krauser is going viral because he just set the world record last year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Shot, big throw.
Big
My
throw.
Lord.
Throw, man.
Big dude, big personality, big train. I mean, that guy, like, he deserves every success he gets. He and his family are just amazing people. So he's going viral for all the good reasons. Yeah. But you went viral. I want to say it was about a year ago. Well, it's hard with COVID time, right?
I know COVID just reset everything, right?
Yeah, but I think it was last indoor season before everything hit, right? You had an interview, and I don't remember if it was through NCA&T or Flow Track or something like that, but you were you kind of almost addressed the haters, if you will, of maybe some negative talk. Talk us through it. I actually don't know much about it. I don't pay attention much to that, but tell us what led up to that and what happened.
Well, Mike, that was look, that had to be said. And this is the first time I've actually publicly addressed this, right? But it had to be said, right? For one, our program has been doing well these last few years, right? And as I mentioned, the stereotype that we don't have the resources, right? But here comes the other stereotype. You know what? We can only be running fast if we're doing something illegal, right? That's offensive.
Okay.
That's offensive, right? So, and this just didn't happen. This has been happening for years, since I've been here. you know what, but I've tried to be the bigger person, keep my mouth closed, and tell our kids. I mean, this gets to our kids and they address it. You know, they say something. And I tell them, hey, listen, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We don't need to get involved in all of that, right? But then it just gets to a point where it has to be said, because you know what, right? Sometimes people will take your silence for acceptance, right? And I believe that's why it got worse, because people were out here making these comments and you know, and I'm not addressing them. So it's almost like it has to be true. It's like I'm accepting it. And so it just continued on. But what really upset me was that I don't have a bad word to say about any coach, right? You know, like I said, like I said about Coach Thompson, the guy's a track guy. Track people love track people. We love the sport, right? You know, if it wasn't our day, you know, I'm dapping up the other coach. Hey man, good job today, right? You know, this is our job. This is our passion, right? But what really bothered me is that when, you know, we're not doing anything to anyone, but doing what we love to do, right? And we support everyone. And these same coaches that will sit here and smile in your face and dap you up and tell you a good job, they'll leave you and go right into the corner with another coach in a dark shadow, right? And want to talk bad about you and spread rumors, right? Well, it just got to a point where I had to address it, right? I mean, it's okay if they run fast because they have a bigger bank account, right? Because it's assumed that they should get the better recruits. It's assumed that they should be the better coaches, right? So it's okay if they run fast, right? But all of a sudden, right, the HBCU is running fast. Oh, it must be something wrong, right? And it had to be addressed because, I mean, and it's even some of our own HBCU coaches, right? I mean, it was just mind-boggling. Like, how are we not supporting each other, right? I mean, it's complete nonsense, right? So it had to be said, right? And I actually told my athletic director I was going to do it. I was like, listen, I have to address this. Like, I have to address it, right? Because to attack me is one thing, right? I'm an adult. I can take it on the chin, right? I'll take it on the chin and just keep it moving, right? But to attack my student athletes who are doing nothing but what they're asked to do, right? They're on the honor roll, right? They're on the dean's list, right? They train hard, they compete hard, right? And then for them to have to sit back and listen to that just because, you know, you're intimidated, you know, because you're not coaching, right? Oh yeah, that had to be said, right? And I don't regret it not one bit, right? I don't regret it not one bit, because keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, I keep my circle tight. I have my friends and then I have associates, right? So, hey, you know, these coaches who, you know, have this opinion and, you know, and wanted to say these things out of intimidation or feeling threatened, you know, that's for them to look in the mirror and deal with. You know, I never considered them friends anyway.
Yeah, I think it was evident. And I think you actually even said these words, what you just said there about, you know, it's one thing to talk about me, but to talk about the kids in my program, that's where that's where the feeling of when you had that interview, if you will, of what it really was about. It's like, hey man, you want to talk about me? That's okay. Like you said, take it on the chin. You ate the first one, and you won't be the last to talk about me. But when you talk about things that I care about, you know, the kids and what they're doing for you and your staff, you know, they're sacrificing, they're busting their butt every day on the track and in the classroom, etc. That's when it was like, okay, now this is too far. And you'd let it go on for quite a while, to your point about, you know, being quiet and was it acceptance or not. So that was pretty evident. I was going to ask you, and you mentioned, so you said either your president or ED actually knew about it. What was their reaction after the fact?
Yeah, let me tell you, man, like I said, I have some cool people in our administration. He and I laughed about it. You know, he said, Coach, you know, well done, right? Well done. Because you know, he's passionate about what we're doing also and whatnot. And you know, I mean, come on, Mike. Sometimes, you know, you just have to take a stand, you know, and you know, show some strength, man, and say, listen, you're not going to do that. You know, you're not going to do that, right? You know, so it needed to be said, and hopefully, you know, we can move on from it, and these coaches, you know, they'll respect us for what we're doing, right? And they'll open up their journals and take better notes and you know, coach their kids, you know, a little better, you know, and hopefully it uplifts the entire track and field world, right? So hopefully that's what it does, right? And we can stop with this nonsense.
Well, I love you talk about real support from your administration, from your president and AD. It's one thing for your administration to say, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. And then when you do it and it blows up a little bit, to be like, oh, well, we can't have that. You got to go. And yet they support like that. It's one thing to say something and it's another thing to do it. And so what a great example from the president. And again, he or she is beholden to other people. So they had to also,
Yeah.
yep, all right, this is our coach. This is
Mhm.
our program. We stand behind them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to belabor that point too much. It's just interesting. We fear things that we don't know, right? That's why we grow up fearing snakes and spiders and such, right? So it's not giving any excuses to people that had disparaged your program and your athletes and your coaching staff and yourself, because it's always wrong to talk negative about people.
Oh,
I'll
absolutely.
put that out there, but it's obviously something that people fear. It's like, wait a minute, I couldn't do that in A&T, so therefore
It must be legal.
things must be wrong, right? Yeah.
They're doing something wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Auntie throws something, and Adrian Bazemore, we're really interested in regards to recruiting of multi-sport athletes. Usually we talk about this in the side of football, like football recruits being signing for big scholarships and being drafted to the NFL. And did they do track in high school and stuff like that? What role, if any, does multi-sport athletes play for you in recruiting?
Oh yeah, we welcome that. I have a great relationship with Coach Washington, our head football coach here, and football and track go hand in hand. Listen, I told you my story, football and track, whatnot. So yeah, I embrace that fully. So we've had dual athletes before in the past that have done football and track.
Do you look for it? Meaning, like, if a kid doesn't quite have the numbers that you're looking for, especially at this stage of where the program's at, if they're, a couple tenths off, well, that's a lot. So maybe they're a tenth off, or they're a couple inches off on their event. Does it play in your mind if they're also playing volleyball, or if they're also playing basketball or anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the beauties of recruiting too. We don't just look at times. Anybody can pull up the top 10 list and recruit from that, right? But one of the reasons, one of the ways we've had success in recruiting is, one, we know we can develop our athletes. So yes, right? If I see an athlete who's that Tom is, a little off of what we're looking at, but guess what? She's doing volleyball at the same time, right? Or she's doing basketball at the same time, right? Yeah, or this kid is doing football and track. So yeah, you have to look at those things too. I mean, listen, we are known for developing our student athletes here and whatnot, but that's one of the ways we're able to do it when we spot those things. Hey, this kid hasn't put a lot in the track and field because he's sharing time with basketball, right? And to me, that's an athlete. Right? That's an athlete. That was me. I wasn't, like I said, my junior year, I wasn't that special, because I thought I was going to be, the next Tony Dorsett. For those of us who know who Tony Dorsett is.
I was about to say, you just showed your age right there. Holy
cow. I know, right?
Tony Dorsett.
I know. But he was the man when I was a kid, So yeah, so yeah, you have to pay attention and really look in depth at these kids, man, and then figure out if they're a good fit for your program.
We're so old, sadly, people don't even remember Bo Jackson, and come on, man. Right? Yeah,
I know.
Well, as we start to wrap up, I do want to talk about something. We've talked about a lot of special things that you've done personally as an athlete, and now as a coach, and things that your athletes have done. We had two people who stole my thunder, because I was totally going to talk about this, but actually I learned something from this, from our pre-interview here. So Doug, I'm probably going to just butcher your last name here. Ameigh. He's at, I don't even know what his Twitter account, like I can't, like usually it's a word, right? But it's no SSESO Nasasum. I don't know. I tried reading it backwards. Moose's son. That's probably what it is. I bet, no, here, I'm going to make up a story. I bet Doug's dad, his nickname was Moose. And so if you read his Twitter handle backwards, it's Moose's son.
You might be onto something.
Doug, please tweet me and let me know if I hit that on the head, man. I hope that is, oh man. I'm Nostradamus, if that's what it is. Okay, well, first of all, Doug says that you are an amazing person, and I should let you know that.
Thank you, Doug. I
don't want to take advantage of that and say that's a given, but you are an amazing person. we're going to skip his B. He says, thank you for what you're doing to help, hashtag save Clemson, XCTF, cross country track and field. Obviously there's a big Twitter handle, and I'm sure it's on Instagram and everything as well, but really, quote unquote, fighting the good fight, making sure we put pressure where pressure is due to hopefully overturn that wrong decision. And says best of luck for this season. He wants to see the 4x4 team go sub 3. We're going to talk about that because Doug also asked, and Coach Bryson also asked, what is it like? So if you don't know Coach Ross here, he coaches some amazing athletes. He's had some amazing athletes in his program. He's going to continue. There's going to be some more amazing athletes, but he has 2 personally special athletes on his team. Your son and I didn't know this until Darius asked this question, your daughter are on your team.
Yep.
What is that like? I mean, we make special relationships with our athletes. This boy and girl, they're in college now, right? So this man and woman, it's amazing that you have an adult male and adult woman as a kid, right? What is it like having these 2 special people on your team?
Man, I tell you, it is the greatest feeling. I mean, every day. I'm gonna tell you, I am truly blessed. I am. I can't be grateful enough for the life I've been given and the situation that I'm in. I'm somewhere where I'm appreciated. Speaking of A&T, appreciated and loved and encouraged. That is huge for me. And then 2, to have my family be there every day. Because I'm gonna tell you, one of the stressful times in my life was my son's senior year in high school. Because of course I wanted him with me, but I wanted my son to, take the right steps, to start his path, right? So I never recruited him. I never encouraged him A&T. We never talked about A&T, right? I mean, he was looking at other schools, and I even was helping him. There were a couple schools in the SEC that, I reached out to, and, like, hey, my son reached out to you, and he's interested, right? And that's another story, because a couple of these schools disregarded him. Yeah, you don't think that's a catalyst for him?
Just assume that he would go to A&T, or?
Oh, just like he may need to run a little faster,
Well, okay, now hold on. Let's set the bar here. If you don't know Duane's kid, so your son ran how fast in the 400?
He ran 45-44 indoor last year. 20.6 this weekend in the 200.
What was he out of high school though? So we're talking about recruiting aspect.
He was the New Balance national champion in the 400, 46.5.
In your
7 feet in high jump.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. The little sub asterisk also, just so happens to be a 7-footer, right? And how fast did your daughter run?
She ran 11.5 in the 100 and 23.6 in the 200.
See, I would have assumed, quote unquote, nobody would have recruited them because they're like, oh, of course he's going to go run for his dad. Come on.
Now, some schools that was the case. Some schools mentioned that, like, man, we know they're going to go there. We're not even waste our time. Some schools did, but I want to keep my relationship with my children. I'm their father first and foremost, right? So both of them took their visits, right? Talked to other coaches, right? I was just sitting in the background as a last resort, right? I wanted them to follow their own path, right? So yeah, that was a stressful time because my son, I mean, he's my son. He's my oldest, and he's taking visits, and I'm like, oh gosh, is he going to go there? And but this guy really showed me his maturity when he and I went to dinner one night. It was actually lunch, and we're sitting there. He says, "So, Dad, about college." And I'm thinking, okay, he's about to tell me where he's going to go, all right? And he said, "So, Dad, about college." He's like, "I think we need to keep our family legacy going, right? So I'm going to come to A&T." Mike, I had to look away from this kid because I was about to cry.
Wow.
It wasn't because he was coming to A&T, it was because he mentioning family and legacy. I'm like, everything I've been trying to teach this kid, right, his whole life is coming. You see the results of that, right? I mean, that was a moment that I'll never forget.
Wow.
So yeah. So and here he is, tearing it up. Yeah.
What a reflection a lot of you, obviously a reflection of you and your fatherhood and growing him up, but obviously, you know, we're a combination of a lot of people, but what a great reflection of leadership from you and others in his life.
Yeah, I'm very proud of him. Very proud of him. Well, my daughter was a different situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about the daughter, right?
She's a different situation. You know, she took her visits, but I had more of a hand in that because she's my daughter. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, I'm a little bit more kind of, hey, this is my daughter. You know, and if she's not in these hands, that's gonna be a problem and whatnot. So, but she made her own decision too.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just a little bit more involved in her recruiting process, whatnot. But then she made her own decision and said, hey, I'm coming to A&T, man. We're just gonna stay here. So
Did you go on any other recruiting visits with them?
no.
Okay, I was going like, how did that work? How'd that feel for you?
I did not, you know, which was the unfortunate because I wanted to. You know, I wanted to experience that, you know, with him. I wanted to experience that with her. You know, they're calling me during the visit and telling me this stuff, and you know, and I wanted to experience that, but I'm like, that would be so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I just stayed out of it and you know, let them and their mother do it.
So what's it like on the track with them in practice? Like, do you have to be cognizant of treating them like the other athletes? And what I mean by that is obviously not favoritism of them, but also, you know, not swinging all the way to the other side of it and being overly tough on them to prove to the other athletes like, oh yeah, they're, you know, they're my son and daughter off the track, not on the track, you know, that kind of machismo, if you will.
No, we actually don't have any kind of issues with that. I mean, I treat them just like anyone else. You know, if nothing else, they get it worse because the expectation is for the entire team. But when you're the coach's son and daughter, right, you can't be late, right? You better know everything that's going on, all right? I mean, so I think it can always be better, obviously, but I think we're right on with, you know, with what we got and whatnot. They, you know, they train hard. They're very respectful kids. You know, the other coaches love them and whatnot. So, like I said, man, I am extremely blessed that, you know, I have, you know, these two kids that are just wonderful human beings.
You know, it's as the dad, it's hard to say that because that's a direct reflection of you. That's your what do they call it, a humble brag? It's like, you know, I think they
Yeah,
are perfectly raised, mature.
yeah, little humble brag there.
You know, of my two kids, I'm like, oh man, they're brats. I don't know who raises them. Actually, when I say how good my kids are, it is not a reflection on me. I'm never around. It's my wife, their mom. That's who raises those kids, man. Let me tell you. Well, as we wrap up, you got to get headed to practice, of course. What else does a coach do on a
That's
weekday?
right. That's right.
But give us, as we, you know, we're excited about indoor track season here and going into outdoor. Give us kind of a preview of what to expect for this season. Are you in the Big South this year?
No, it'll be next season.
Next year. Okay, so MEAC.
Yeah, we're still in the MEAC.
Yeah, MEAC. Okay, so give us a reflection of what your goals are this year and what we might expect at nationals in the conference this year.
Yeah, so we are, obviously our indoor conference was canceled. So yeah, so the goal, as always, is winning nationals. And then we will have MEAC outdoors, and then obviously regionals and nationals. You know, we're praying that everything continues as is, and you know, these people can get healthy from COVID, and we can get rid of this nasty disease. So we can just keep doing what we're doing. But yeah, the goal is to win nationals. I mean, I can't say it any clearer than that. The goal is to win nationals. Why not? Right? I'm, you know, we have the athletes capable of doing it. They have the mentality. You know, they want it just as much as we want it. Right? And that is the goal. Listen, we want to win our last MEAC championship. Right? We want to win that. This will be our last year in MEAC. That's important to us. Right? But we've won 14 MEAC championships, I think, in a row. Right? Yeah. So as I tell my kids, you know, all the time, listen, it's time to move on, right? It's time to move on, right? Those 14 trophies we have, right? I want 14 NCAA trophies, right? That is the mission, right? That's the mission. So that's what we're working towards.
I don't know how you do it. How do you outright say the mission is to win not only a national championship at a school that air quotes here is not supposed to win a national championship, and then to say to win 14 NCAA championships? I don't know how you do it, how you say it. Normally a person would say that to me and I'd be like, whoa, what a egotistical, unrealistic, but like when you say it, I honestly like, it's like, oh, not only do I believe it, it's kind of like, it almost feels like, oh yeah, okay, it's just a matter of time. Like
Mm-hmm.
10 years from now, he'll be halfway through the mission or something, I don't know, man. It's a special combination. Well, man, Duane, I can't say thank you enough. This was all that I expected and more. It was really, I know you fairly well, I would say, and to learn more about you is real special, and to share your journey. Honestly, that's the number one goal of, why we started the podcast here, was to people read your bio, and that's one thing, but then to hear you tell your journey, and to hear your conviction when it comes to your program, and what you've done, and the people that have poured into your life, from the high school coaches, the basketball coach. Love that. Oh man, that's so awesome. Obviously your college coaches, and then just what you're doing. You're now becoming them, right? Like if I go to interview one of your kids, they'd be like, oh, Coach Ross believed in me by saying X, Y, and Z. That's what is so special, is something that you mentioned a couple of times. And it struck with me because it's how I believe about my time here at Gill. You talked about that you're a steward of the program. The NCA&T track program started, I don't know, do you know how long have they had track there at A&T?
No, I know it's been at least 40 years.
Long time, right? 40 years. And you're going to be at this institution. You've been there 9 years. You may be there, who knows, you may be there 30 years, but there's going to be a program after you. So you really, in the scheme of things, you're only at that program for a very small amount of time. That's what you mean. That's what it means when you say you're a steward of the program. It came before you. You didn't build it, and you will hand it off to someone. It's kind of like I said, the same way, Gill's been around since 1918. I've been here 15 years, and hopefully you'll be here for another 30 years. Maybe I can retire by then, but Gill's been here 100 years. I'm hopeful that what I do during my time will allow it to be here for another 100. And what you're mentioning there, and your son nailed it, by the way. He jumped the gun on me, stole my thunder. He's talking about legacy. You're talking about legacy and what you are building there. No matter what happens from here on out, you've built something special, not only for A&T, but you're building something special for your family and for your career. And most importantly, the people that are going to go on and do just as many great things as you and better. That's the legacy, the impact you make on others, man. And it's just so awesome to hear that story and that journey. And I'm just so honored you would share it with us today.
Oh man, thanks, Mike. Thanks for allowing me, man. This was great. I hope it changes someone's lives for the better.
Take out the word hope, and it will.
It will.
It will. I don't share a lot of the feedback because some of it's very personal, but your journey will affect people in a positive manner. 100%.
All right.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. Man, just want to thank you so much, Duane, for being here today. Honestly, just appreciate your authenticity and openness to share with us. No pulled punches here. We took it on the chin and we heard it all, baby. I'm gonna start using that. I love that. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the show. That's how you know when we publish, and you'll be ahead of the curve on everybody else. Even more importantly, if you found value in today's conversation, I'm willing to bet others in your network would as well. So please hit the share button and let people on Facebook, Twitter, and the whole rest of the gang know all about it. So next week, join us and we'll do it all over again, and we'll connect you with another awesome coach. Thanks for being here today, guys.